There is a kind of power that cannot be given to you by anyone. It cannot be earned through achievement, bought through success, or borrowed from the people around you. It can only be built, slowly, quietly, through a practice that most people in the modern world have almost entirely abandoned. The practice of being genuinely, comfortably, peacefully alone with yourself. Not alone because circumstances forced it. Not alone out of bitterness or withdrawal or defeat. Alone by choice. Alone with intention. Alone in the way that the most psychologically powerful people in history were alone. Not as a poverty of connection, but as a richness of self. The person who has mastered this is one of the most formidable human beings you will ever encounter. They do not need your approval. They do not need your company. They do not need to be understood or validated or included, not because they are cold, but because they have already found, in themselves, the thing that most people spend their entire lives searching for in other people: peace. Stability, the quiet certainty of knowing who they are. And that certainty does not waver when the room is empty. This is what the Stoics called autarkia, self-sufficiency, the state of needing nothing external to be complete, not as a philosophical ideal to be admired from a distance, as a daily practice. A specific, achievable, life-changing practice. Welcome to Master Your Mind, the place where ancient philosophy becomes practical mental strength. Today we are going to talk about what it actually means to stand alone, and why it is the foundation of everything the Stoics called strength, the psychology of needing others to feel whole. There is nothing wrong with wanting connection, the desire to belong, to be seen, to be understood. These are not weaknesses. They are part of what makes us human. But there is a difference between wanting connection and needing it to function, between choosing company and being unable to tolerate its absence. The person who needs the presence of others to feel okay about themselves is in a fragile position. Their stability is rented from the outside world, and rent, by definition, can be withdrawn. When the relationship changes, they change. When the group excludes them, they collapse. When the approval disappears, so does their confidence. This is not a character flaw. It is a developmental gap, a gap that arises when a person has never had to develop their own inner resources because external ones were always available. The Stoics understood this gap clearly. Epictetus wrote, "Never say about anything that you have lost it, but only that you have returned it." He was speaking about the danger of becoming attached to things and people in a way that made your peace conditional on their presence. Because everything external is temporary, and the peace that depends on the temporary is itself temporary. The only peace that lasts is the peace you have built inside. And that building requires time alone, real time. Not scrolling alone, not watching things alone, but genuinely alone with your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own inner world. Most people have not done this, not because they are lazy, but because no one taught them it was necessary, and the world conspires to make it feel uncomfortable every time they try. What the Stoics practiced and why it worked. Marcus Aurelius had access to everything the world considered desirable: wealth, power, status, constant company, entertainment, every distraction imaginable. And he chose solitude. Not occasionally, daily. As a non-negotiable practice that he protected with the same discipline he applied to everything else. Why? Because he understood that power without inner stability is fragile. That a man who governs an empire but cannot govern his own thoughts is not truly governing anything. He is just reacting at scale. The Meditations, the private journal that was never meant to be published, are the record of a man doing daily maintenance on his own mind, examining where he had been reactive, where he had been inconsistent, where he had allowed external circumstances to disturb what should have been an internal equilibrium, and then every morning returning to the silence to rebuild that equilibrium before the day could erode it again. This is not the behavior of a man who is afraid of being alone. This is the behavior of a man who understands that the inner life is the primary life. That everything else, every relationship, every achievement, every external condition, rests on the quality of what is happening inside. Seneca practiced voluntary discomfort of a specific kind. He would periodically withdraw from society, not permanently but deliberately, to test himself, to ask, who am I when the comforts are removed? Who am I when no one is watching? Who am I when I have no role to play and no audience to perform for? The answers to those questions, he believed, were the only reliable information about what kind of man he actually was. And Epictetus, who had nothing to withdraw from because nothing had ever been given to him, modeled a different but equally powerful version of the same truth. He demonstrated that inner freedom is not a reward for favorable circumstances. It is a practice that can be maintained in any circumstances, chained, impoverished, controlled, and still the most internally free person in the room. Because his peace was not located in the external world where chains had meaning. It was located inside him, where nothing could reach it. The magnetic effect of self-sufficiency. Here is something that seems counterintuitive but is consistently, reliably true. The person who needs nothing from you is often the person you most want to be around. There is something unmistakably attractive about a person who is comfortable in their own skin, who does not need to be entertained, validated, or constantly included, who can sit in silence without discomfort, who can be alone without restlessness. That quality has a name in Stoic philosophy: dignity, not the performance of importance. The quiet, settled certainty of a person who knows their own worth without needing it confirmed. When you have developed this, when you have spent enough time alone to know yourself and to like what you have found, your presence changes. You stop giving off the low-level signal of neediness that makes other people unconsciously pull back. You stop adjusting yourself in real time based on how you think others are receiving you. You stop performing and start simply being, and being is infinitely more compelling than performing. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this quality in The People He Most Admired. He described his adoptive father Antoninus Pius as a man who had no need of praise and no fear of criticism, who could be alone without restlessness and in company without ostentation. A man who was the same person in every room, because his identity was not being constructed by the room he was in. That consistency, that sameness across contexts, is one of the most powerful qualities a human being can develop. And it is only possible when there is a stable inner core that does not shift based on who is watching. That core is built in solitude, in the repeated, honest, unglamorous practice of being alone with yourself and choosing to stay there long enough to actually find out who you are, standing alone inside the crowd. There is a distinction the Stoics drew that is rarely discussed: the distinction between external solitude and internal solitude. External solitude is being physically alone. Internal solitude is being psychologically alone, maintaining your own center even when surrounded by people. This internal solitude is in many ways the harder practice, because the pressure to conform, to agree, to perform, that pressure is at its highest when you are surrounded by others. The person who can sit in a room full of people who all agree on something and still hold their own honest perspective without the need to perform agreement they do not feel, that person has achieved something remarkable. They have brought their solitude into the crowd. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly, surrounded by courtiers and generals and advisors who told him what he wanted to hear, because telling emperors what they want to hear is how you survive in court. And still he maintained his own honest assessment of things. He wrote, "Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present." Reason, not the crowd's consensus, not the flattery of those around him, was his compass. And reason is available to you right now, in this moment. Regardless of what everyone else thinks, the practice of internal solitude means asking, in any situation, what do I actually think about this? Not what am I supposed to think? Not what will make me fit in, not what will avoid conflict. What do I actually think? And then holding that thought, quietly, without performance. Simply knowing it is yours. This is not stubbornness. It is not the refusal to be changed by good arguments. It is the refusal to be changed by social pressure alone. And that refusal, the ability to stand in your own mind while surrounded by other people's opinions, is one of the most difficult and most powerful things a human being can develop. It is only possible for the person who has spent enough time alone with their own thoughts to actually know what those thoughts are. The difference between isolation and solitude, a necessary distinction, because everything we have discussed can be misunderstood as a call for withdrawal, for stepping back from the world and from connection. That is not what the Stoics meant, and it is not what is being described here. Isolation is the cutting off of connection out of fear, pain, or bitterness. It is a wound, not a practice. Solitude is the chosen, temporary, intentional withdrawal into your own company for the purpose of restoration, reflection, and growth. It is not permanent. It is not hostile to connection. It is, in fact, what makes genuine connection possible. The warrior retreats to sharpen the sword, not to abandon the battle. The Stoic retreats to the inner life, not to leave the world behind, but to return to it more whole. Seneca was deeply engaged in the political and social life of Rome. Marcus Aurelius governed the largest empire in the known world. Neither of them was a hermit. Neither of them withdrew from the world. Both of them maintained a consistent inner practice of solitude that allowed them to engage with the world from a position of strength rather than need. The goal is not to need less human connection. The goal is to bring more of yourself to the connections you choose, rather than bringing your hunger for validation and asking your relationships to feed it. The person who has mastered their own inner life chooses their relationships. They are not compelled into them by need. They are not held in them by fear. They are there by genuine choice. And that choice, freely made, from a place of fullness rather than lack, is the only foundation on which real relationships are built. Everything else is just the management of mutual need. Before we close today, I want to name the thing that underlies everything we have covered. Because this video has been about solitude, but what it has really been about is self-respect. The person who cannot be alone does not fully respect themselves, not because they are bad, but because they have not yet met themselves. And you cannot respect a stranger. Every minute you spend in honest solitude is a minute spent building a relationship with the person who will be with you every day of your life. The only person who will. That relationship deserves your attention. It deserves the kind of investment that most people give entirely to relationships with others. The Stoics made that investment daily, and the evidence of that investment is in the clarity of their thinking, the steadiness of their character, and the fact that we are still learning from them 2,000 years later. Stand alone. Epictetus wrote, "Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish. Wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life." That tranquility, that unshakable, circumstance-proof peace, is not something you find in another person. It is not something the world can give you. It is built, alone, in the quiet, through the repeated practice of returning to yourself. Stand alone, not as retreat, as practice. Stand alone until you know who is standing there, until you have met yourself honestly and found something worth standing with. Stand alone until the fear of aloneness loses its power, and what replaces it is something quieter and far more durable. The simple, settled knowledge that you are enough, that you have everything you need, that the silence is not empty, it is full of the person you have been building every time you chose the quiet over the noise. That person is the strongest version of you. They have been there all along. You just needed to stop running long enough to find them. If this idea of building your inner life feels like work you are ready to do, the Master Your Mind program is the structured path for exactly this. The philosophical framework, the daily practices, and the depth of self-examination that turns these ideas from inspiration into transformation. The link is in the description. When you are ready, it is there. And if this message resonated with you, Subscribe to the channel and stay committed to the path of self-mastery. Every single day on Master Your Mind, we bring you the ancient wisdom that builds stronger, wiser, more unshakable human beings. This is not passive viewing. This is training. I will see you in the next video.